The depravity of man's heart knows no floor, and everyone in this hard country had a sordid chapter in the story of their life, and that they're trying to either atone for or stay ahead of. It's what binds us to one another. And that is from page 13 of The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This came out this year in 2025. It's 435 pages, and it's like a bit of a genre bender. It's it's historical fiction and horror. Sorry, I lost my place. I read this book to fulfill a prompt for my interview with Vampire Inspired Readathon because I love AMC's adaptation so much, and as well as the books that I've created a whole readathon around this where I snoop onto the bookshelves of the characters that have been adapted for the show, and all prompts are crafted from the character arc on the show. And so every not quite quarterly, probably quarterly, I release a video with a TBR and prompts. So you could either read along with me, or hopefully this will be a way to encourage you to read on your shelf. So yes, I was fulfilling, since we're focusing on Claudia, I was fulfilling the prompt, Claudia's squandered from telling her own narrative. So read a story within a story. So yes, the author has written over 30 books. So The Buffalo Hunter, yes, is his recent, but I started reading the author in this past couple of years. The first book I read was The Only Good Indians. So that's like the first full-length novel that I read. I'm not a big horror fan, and so I was like pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this. I can never tell what I can handle or not. This is definitely graphic at times, and also very much feels like a love letter to horror. So if horror is your thing, even if it's just like movies, that particular genre, you're going to be able to pick this up and kind of see like why I'm saying this is like a love letter to horror. He's also written a comic book series that I'm really into right now, The Earth Divers 1776 and Earth Divers Ice Age. I think there's some other volumes out there that I just haven't picked up yet. So what is Buffalo Hunters all about? Well, I'll read you a quick synopsis, okay? A diary written in 1912 by the Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall. What is unveiled is a slow massacre, a chain of events that go back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in transcribed interviews by a Blackfeet named Goodstab, who shares the narrative of his peculiar life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story written by one of the new masters of horror, Stephen Graham Jones. And I read that as a synopsis from Barnes and Noble, because I don't think I could quite wrap up everything that's going on in here. And I had to write down my notes, so I'll be kind of looking all over the place today. I usually have like my OneNotes up, so even though I'm looking at the camera, I'm really looking at OneNotes. But not tonight. Tonight I'm going to need a little bit of help. You're definitely going to want to look up trigger warnings for this book. It's definitely graphic. It is horror, but it is mixing historical fiction. And because of that, I just think, just look up the warnings and see what you're comfortable with. Historical fiction horror really works for me so far, I'm finding out, because I did read The Reformatory by Tananarive Due, because I always have to bring in Interview the Vampire. Tananarive Due is a film historian. She writes horror, and she made an appearance on the podcast that AMC had for this first season of Interview the Vampire, and with my favorite comedian, or one of my favorite comedians, Naomi Epicurian, and also made an appearance on the I think they had like an after show type thing for the first season, and she also made an appearance there. So in case you're not familiar with her work, then you'll definitely be familiar with those two appearances if you happen to listen in. Oh yeah, where was I going with this? So Tananarive Due wrote The Reformatory, and that was like a thick boy. That's a big book. It's historical fiction. I just felt like that seems to be my key into horror. That I really seem to enjoy, but I also enjoy historical fiction. And so that's what's going on in this particular book, that we're experiencing someone's life. And it's entangled and inspired by true life events, right? Throughout American history. And so I just think that's a really effective way to go. I'd have to say, this is going to be a non-spoiler review, so I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this. This author has such a unique way of writing vampires, like taking it apart and making it their own. And it's just wholly original, unique, refreshing to read. And the kind of like the origins and lore with vampires in this story feels more like folklore than reading fantasy, if that makes any sense. That's how it read to me. Again, it's because it's wrapped up in historical fiction. And so, yeah, I'm trying to give you an example. For instance, Sylvia Moreno Garcia wrote Certain Dark Things, which is a vampire tale. And the unique spin that this author takes is just that like vampires have like differing powers based on basically like region and country, just to sum it up. But a lot of the other parts of being a vampire are pretty much like what I've read before. Again, without spoiling it, this book just makes it unique, and I wish I could praise it more, but I also don't want to give away what I read in case you want to like just experience it for the first time on your own. There's also something that stuck out to me, and it's kind of a random thought. There's something that I don't know how many different like indigenous communities it's like this applies to, but I like when I just kind of like I'm able to pluck things out, and that is that winter counts. That system was brought up, and I only learned about winter counts because the book Winter Counts by David Heska Wandley Whedon, who is a crime fiction writer, who also happens to be indigenous. He's a Sikangu Lakota Nation is what he's part of. Anyways, so that just kind of like stuck out to me, and I just like appreciated those little details that I was able to notice with what little I do know. Additionally, there's something like thematic that was going on here. I thought I was going to turn into like a tie-in or something bigger, and it didn't, which is fine. But there seems to be like this feline quality in the book. For instance, the main character that we're basically reading the story through is a woman in present day named Etsy, who's like an academic who's reading these old transcriptions, and she has a cat named Taz. And in the past, the transcript that she's reading, the journals of this pastor, he has a cat named Cordelia. And I just like the way that the author writes the felines. And there's another character that's referred to as the Catman, and that is in the past. That's like in the transcript. And so I just thought that was interesting that keeps coming through. I kind of wonder if the author has cats or is like a big like cat fan, or I don't know. That just like stuck out to me as someone that has two cats that drive me insane. That just stuck out to me. I'm trying to think about what else I could say without giving it away. There's definitely a conversation that the character in the transcript, Good Stab, is having, and that's also like surrounds symbolically about like indigenous identity. At least that was my takeaway, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, I don't think those it's not like, I'm not necessarily, how do I explain this? He's not writing that for me, right? He's writing it for maybe himself and his community. But that just kind of like stuck out to me, and I'm sure some of it kind of goes over my head, but I don't mind. I still like really enjoy learning and taking in those what the author's trying to say. Basically, there are definitely several twists and turns in this book, and every single twist and turn in this book I relished. A big question that the author leaves for us to have a discussion about is, can these characters find absolution? And so if you've read this book, let me know what you think about that question that the author seems to be having like throughout. The ending was a wild ride, and it was like chef's kiss. So before I jump into my 3 questions for my readathon, I did kind of want to note that when I was reading this, I did see like some connections between Interview the Vampire, how it's being handled on the adaptation, and this book. For instance, there's like 2 narratives going on. One is in, I have the dates here, in 1912, and the other end is present day 2012. And so there's a couple of things going on. For instance, in AMC's Interview the Vampire, the way that the book is being adapted, Daniel, the journalist, interviews Louis in like the 1970s at some point. The interview doesn't finish. It ends badly, and jump to most likely like present day Dubai, and the interview starts up once again. So you have these people meeting after so much time, several decades has passed. So we have like 2 different stories going on. Why do they feel the need to meet each other and have these conversations again? Why is this important now after all this time? And then also an evaluation of the past. And that's what's going on in this book as well. And I just thought that was like a great like narrative device, for lack of better words. It's kind of like toggling through the past and present and finding yourself trying to like unlock that mystery. Both have questions. Yeah, so basically both have the questions of why are these interviews taking place? And on top of that, layered in, very much like what the show is, can we trust the people that are being interviewed? Can we trust the person that's transcribing the story? What is that person? Can you take that person for face value, or do you think there's some sort of manipulation going on, like on several levels, right? So it's whether how you view the pastor, who in here is referred to as 3 persons, because Father, Son, and the Creator, or Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So I like that he was called 3 persons throughout, because I also did see some connection between the number 3, like for instance, how I brought up the cat, how there's Taz, Cordelia, and the Catman, and there's a couple other ones, but I don't want to like, I don't want to make this too long. But that was just something that I noticed, and there's something that happens in this book. I mean, again, it's horror, so I could discuss it here, like on page 212. And it reminded me of season 1 finale of Interview with a Vampire, where Louis just straight up like rips apart someone's jaw. There's definitely a moment like that in this book. And yeah, and I'm an obsessed fan. So immediately I thought of Louis, and then I made a note about it. And so, yeah, those are definitely like all some of the connections I saw between the book and the show. So yeah, I definitely liked following the Etsy, who's the person we're in modern times that we're following. She's an academic, works at the university or a university for communications and journalism. So we just have like a keen eye on this material. And I enjoyed how their story like unraveled as well. It was so good. I think that's all I'll say about that because I don't want to get too into it. Let's go on to the questions for our readathon. So there's always going to be 3 questions. The first is, why does Claudia have this book on her shelf? Claudia is someone that kept their own journal, wrote their thoughts down, but then like their parents read their journal, so then you can't really rely on what they're writing. So they definitely felt like someone that didn't really have a space to like be themselves, be comfortable. Couldn't even trust writing something down. And so I think about that in terms of like the fact that we all know like where Claudia's story goes, and then this journal gets found like 100 years later, right? So I think there's something to someone not having a chance to speak for themselves, to say to say their truth in the way that they want to, because of other factors that are in their way. And so, yeah, that's something that, basically like fulfilling the prompt. I think that just really stuck out to me, that worked out unfortunately well. But I also think that Claudia would enjoy the moments of like revenge that this character Goodstab gets to impart on, and telling like their own narrative as transcribed by 3 persons, because that's something that she has to do for herself. And by the end of season 1, right, she realizes she's going to have to be smarter than the person that's keeping her trapped in order to free herself. And so I think there's just like some things that she would really like be able to key into and appreciate with that narrative. And so the second question is, did this book contextualize the character for me? I'm trying to think, like probably like recontextualize in some ways. I'm trying to think about how I could give an example. I feel like Goodstab, in some ways, he sees how other people perceive him, and I think at times he uses that to his advantage, in the only way that he can. So that may be like manipulative to some, but for me, I see it like as a survival tactic. And that's how I feel about Claudia, is that every like step in her life, there have just been choices been made without her consent, and very different iterations of that. And she's had to endure and survive like every step of the way. So I'm not sure how season 3 is going to play out on reflecting on her, but I'm still rooting for Claudia because no one really had her back until like the very end. And I felt like that choice was even ripped from her as well. So just something to think about. All right, 3. What book would you recommend the character? I'm under the impression that maybe Claudia has never read a cozy read. She's had to spend a lot of time surviving and crafting. So I would suggest she read The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. I haven't read this yet, but I was taken by the edges, the sprayed edges, and the cover. And there's a cat with wings there. So I'll just read this to you like the sleeve because it sounds cute and exciting. Elsewhere in the empire, on a remote island brimming with singing flowers, honey cakes, and honeyed love, Turlu Purna broke the law because she was lonely. She cast a spell and created a magically sentient spider plant. As punishment, she was turned into a wooden statue and tucked away in an alcove in the north reading room of the Great Library of Elysium. This should have been the end of her story. Yet one day, Turlu wakes in the cold of winter on a nearly deserted island full of hundreds of magical greenhouses. She's starving and freezing, and the only other human on the island is a grumpy gardener. To her surprise, he offers Turla a place to sleep, clean clothes, and freshly baked honey cakes, at least until she's ready to sail home. But Turla doesn't want to return home, and as she grows closer with the unwittingly charming gardener Yarrow, she learns the magic that sustains the greenhouses is failing, causing the death of everything within them. Turlu knows she must help, even if that means breaking the law again. This time, though, she isn't alone. Assisted by Yarrow and a sentient rose, Turlu must unravel the secrets of a long-dead sorcerer if she wants to save the island and have a fresh chance at happiness and love. Funny, kind, and forgiving, The Enchanted Greenhouse is a story about giving second chances to others and to yourself. And so I think that would be a beautiful, beautiful book for Claudia to read. Elephant in the room. It is hotter than Hades where I live right now, and it's even hotter in my apartment. So you'll be seeing me in more tank tops, rocking the lobster look. If you somehow stay through this whole recording, thank you so much for your support. I hope you're engaging with the readathon. The readathon should be over already, but I'm sorely behind in reading myself. I just had a little too much going on. So instead of releasing reviews like every Wednesday, it's turning into every other Wednesday. And now I'm releasing this review on Thursday just because I'm trying to get it out. So yeah, bear with me. Thank you for your patience. Every time I read a book, I put it for public access on Storygraph. If you're on Storygraph, in case you want to read along with me, I have it on like the buddy read option. And let's see what else is going on. So yes, I will be continuing this read along for Claudia into September. I don't have a choice. I'm not done yet, and I have like 3 more books to read. So I hope you enjoy the readathon continuing. And with that said, love you, everyone. Thank you so much for reading along with me. And just remember, life is chaos, so read more books and be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Bye.